We're starting on board the foam roller for this session, so lay it down the center of your mat. As you can see, I'm perched right on the front end, so that's just between the sit bones, feels very much like tailbone. If there's sensitivity there, you just simply need to use your arms, so you could be pushing down into the roller already, coming to more of a hover. Check in with your feet, because you're not going to be able to do that and see them once you've laid down, so parallel, roughly a hand's length away from the end of the roller. And you can choose your distance. We know that the narrower you are once you've laid on, the more challenging that could potentially be. For example, if we'd come into straight arm arcs. Otherwise, you could go wider, but see whether you can find something that feels comfortable for you, toes pointing forwards. And then as you're laying down there, tipping onto the back of the sacrum and rolling through the spine, you certainly want to get a sense of what feels like it's protruding, pushing into the back of your body from the roller. Because that way you can really gauge as to whether you have found the middle of yourself. And being on the foam roller, we're always welcoming this movement. So we've got this subtlety and this constant spontaneous movement from the torso. You might even feel that more through the feet. We're welcoming that. It's certainly not a negative to be responding to it. Just allow the connections to the roller to become heavier. So here you could be considering the sacrum itself. Maybe for you, you feel a sense of the lower back segments dropping in as well. Might feel different. Lower ribs, sometimes they can be very firmly connected. And then up there, notice, do you feel like you're right in between the shoulder blades? Does it feel like the roller meets the high part of your blades? And then, of course, back of the head, getting a feel that that is as centrally on the roller as you can manage. And so we're in this narrow stance, because ultimately our first movement is just going to ease us into some dead bugs. Pick up on the width of the collarbones, forearms and palms in contact with the floor. And then when you're ready, using the floor, standing down into one of your feet to float one of the legs, and then bringing one of the legs back down to where it's come from. We stand down. As you stand down into the foot, notice how the opposite forearm responds, balancing you out, top and bottom. So for example, as the left foot stands down, the right forearm also just pushes down into the floor. You might notice that in doing so, the collarbone also feels wider on that side. We're definitely briefly experiencing both feet on the mat. And you could look to almost cross over there as you come through and slightly alter the pace of the exchange. Maybe it's then a little bit more helpful to think about both forearms and palms supporting you. Notice how this feels as a movement. And again, welcoming any subtle movements as the torso readjusts to the different leg. Pelvis itself appears heavy throughout. Of course, we're monitoring the center of the pelvis. We'll take one more of these. You bring the legs down. And to take a reset, use the floor, support yourself with your arms, bring your feet together, and then take a toes apart and bring the heels into line. We're going to move into some breath. Elbows can stay down on the floor and simply bring the hands up to touch the rib cage. Now, that might not necessarily be the front ribs, just depending on arm length, distance away from the floor. You're looking to encourage the collarbones to stay wide. So maybe an elbow hover. But of course, you can be holding on to the side rib cage here, almost as if your hands were a corset around the middle spine. Take a breath in. Inflate the corset of the ribs, and as you breathe out, observe the natural softening there. Inhaling. And exhaling. And you're going to take a few more repetitions here because, of course, pace of breath, length of breath is different from individual to individual. And so it mightn't be helpful for me to guide you as to when to breathe in and when to breathe out. But know that each time you do take your inhale, you're getting a sense of ribs pushing into the palms of the hands, and as you breathe out, just a natural feel through the fingertips and the hands of the ribs deflating. Inhaling. Last one on its own. Fingers will head to the ceiling here. Keep the breath pattern going. So whilst, of course, you can't feel the ribcage inflating, you get a sense that it's still doing so. And as you breathe out, of course, you still have that deflating occurring too. No need to rush this next moment, but as you breathe out next, the arms are going to start to fall backwards. You'll take an inhale with them reaching to the wall behind you, and an exhale for you to return all the way back now beside you to go again. So as we breathe in, we carry the arms to the ceiling. And as we take the breath out, the arms will be falling back there. Inhaling when you're back. And then exhaling to come all the way back down beside you. Breath in. Last one. I'm going to head into open and close next. Your choice of breath pattern here. So starting at the ceiling point, the arms are going to widen. Sense the shoulder blades against the roller, and then carry the arms back up to their starting position. Stay wide through the collarbones. So be aware then as the arms close, you certainly won't get the palms together. There's still some space there, some width between the hands. circles are going to happen next, and of course you could start your circling movement with the fingertips tracing that shape in the air above the shoulders. And this might be the range of movement that you continue to keep, or you could start to be taking the combined movement of shoulder flexion into the opening and the circling action, passing through the open and close to bring you back down beside you. Inhaling, exhaling for your arms moving backwards. So take a breath in here, and then breathing out as you open the arms all the way around and bring them back beside you. Breath in. One more if you'd like to. And from here, you're going to simply roll yourself off your roller to the side and lay yourself down on your back. Just get a sense of that, your body against the ground for the first time. Might even notice some difference with the feet, the weight of the legs, as well as the more obvious change in contact of the back of you against the floor in comparison to just sensing the very center of you against the roller. So we have this sense of the breadth of us. Bring the roller, it's going to go underneath the bent legs. And it's just going to hang out there for a moment whilst we come into a little bit of bridging. And so the bridging is going to be without the roller, but it's there and ready and waiting for us to utilize it in the bridging movement as well. So standing down into your feet initially, getting that whole breadth of the foot, length of the foot in contact with the floor. Really use the forefoot as the hips are climbing, so sense the balls of the feet and the toes. As you breathe out, dropping in between the shoulder blades, widening through the sit bones and landing the pelvis back down on the mat. Breath out will take you up. Feet are standing down for the pelvis to respond to the up. Breath in and breath out to sigh and widen. There's a slow feeling of giving and opening through the base of the pelvis there. Notice your arms. They're being sent behind the body line as a byproduct of the body moving forwards and away from them. And then pausing as you land. And so in terms of what is going to enable us to perform that same movement on the foam roller, so awareness of feet. Maybe rhythmically we push the tempo so that the pelvis lifts a little bit quicker. Still articulating as much as possible, but due to the recruitment through the backs of the legs now, as you stand on the roller, you might find you need to move quicker on the way up and down, and maybe you lose that languid sort of movement and mobility through the spine. So standing down into the feet, hovering the pelvis, tipping the pelvis towards the ribs as the knees are reaching away from you. Breath out, sighing between the blades, again widening through the sit bones for you to come all the way back down again. Down. Couple more. And last one here. As you return, a short sequence of footwork will just help to create some length once more through the backs of the legs. Remember, pressure downwards is really the key to enabling you to control the roller here. So pushing down on it, almost as if you're trying to roll out every little bit of the tissue from the arch of the foot up towards the bottom of the calf. And then pausing when you're back in. Bring yourself up to sit. Rollers coming behind you. We're going to do a little bit of extension work here now. So resting on the roller. As always, you might choose to put a towel or a cushion between where you're resting here and the roller just to soften, depending on how that's all feeling for you. You're interlacing your fingers and taking them behind your head. Lift and lower the pelvis, really just to bring some awareness to it. So how is it doing? Are you able to tip it very slightly to the ribs? Perhaps that's your hovered pelvis of a bridge, and then you're tilting to start your movement. Take your inhale, you're lifting up and over the roller, elbows will widen. And as you breathe out, send the back ribs back. Really look at reflecting, having done this on the ball recently, inhaling. And remember, as we're extending through the upper spine, we're looking at the lower spine staying very similar in its contact, in its curve. That's all going to be taken from the position of your sacrum. So keep tuning into that. Pause when you're back. A little more through the rib cage, and again I would suggest grabbing a little cushion or a towel initially if this doesn't quite feel right. You're coming onto your side, knees are bent, it just gives you a little bit more support that way. and you're just looking to rest the side ribs against the roller, you're also going to prop yourself up on your elbow. And this hand is going to come in handy because you could be pushing down on the roller to give yourself a lighter connection. But pause here, take a breath in, and use the roller quite similar to how we might have a ball underneath that area. Breathe into the roller, inhaling, and exhaling. Breath in, use your hand if you need to feel lighter. Move around if you want to feel like you're slightly forward on the ribs. And that is where we're going next. So if your hand is resting on the roller, move it slightly forward and then just turn yourself downwards. You're feeling the low ribs now against the roller. Same approach, 4 breaths. The intensity is up to you, depending on your experience here. Quite often, if there has been a little injury maybe to the intercostals or to the muscles wrapping around the back of the shoulder blade to here, it might not feel too nice for you, in which case take the roller away completely. You could use a mini ball instead. And then pausing there. We are going to do the other side, but before we do, I'd like you to just bring yourself onto your back, having had that sense of coming off the foam roller lengthways, and just get a sense of that through either side of the ribs. Bring yourself into a similar position now, resting on the other side, roller coming in and under there. Now, my microphone pack is just here, so I might not be able to come into the forward position as much as the first side. I'm going to find my side ribs, not too far away from where the hands were resting initially, and the elbow is offering me some weight as well, so there's not too much load then through the ribs. The other thing that's going to offset that slightly is pushing down into the roller here. And breathing in and feeling the expansion of the ribs against the roller. And that's 4 breaths. Rotating downwards. Of course, you're going to move slowly. Just getting a feel for this. Maybe the hand needs to move away from you, gives you more room, and you can still be pushing down. Last one. Bring yourself back onto your back. Doesn't matter exactly where you are on your mat, but just to get a feel of that. And particularly if there was a sense of imbalance in between, we have just created a little bit of heat and awareness of the side of the body. And so what we're going to do with that is use it in a mermaid setting. And so for Mermaid, you could choose to bring yourself onto blocks or cushions, Z-sit if possible, and you're going to have the roller beside you for this. So organising yourself in a Z-sit if that's doable, prop yourself up as much as you need to, and just sort of finding that in yourself. And so the roller wants to be in close to you, if it will oblige. And we'll start off by taking a side bend, resting the opposite hand on the roller, and then bringing ourselves back up to this starting position. So using your left arm, if you're mirroring, inhaling as you do so, taking yourself over there, and you're just simply going to connect with the roller. So perhaps it needs to move closer to you, perhaps it would be more beneficial if it moved away from you, just to get you going, and then bring yourself back up. So we have an arm arc, as you know, inhaling. How's the shoulder blade doing that back there? Exhaling to take you over. Now, if I didn't move the roller, it might just feel a little bit limiting. And whilst the side bend doesn't have to be huge, maybe just to allow you to still feel like the right side of you is softening, you know, softened shoulder, softened elbow, softened wrist. You might find that moving it away from you is helpful when trying to achieve that. Breath in here and breath out to bring you back up again. Couple more. I'm going to start to rotate to the roller here and now. So same side bend set up. And then rotating downwards. Now we have done this towards the floor and as part of a thread the needle. Notice there how the right hand moves towards the back, so to give your left hand some room coming onto the roller. And then you're going to draw the roller in towards you and start to extend the spine up and away. You'll breathe out, lower the gaze, and you're sending the roller away from you. There is a sense of upper body rounding. You draw the roller in towards you. You could add in a breath in. Your trailing sit bone is lifting to enable you to really rotate around this corner here. And then as you breathe out, we're just taking you out of the extension, rounding very slightly. Because then as you inhale and come in, it's going to feel like you came larger, you came from a farer place. Last one. We round. Sit back down there in the sit bone. Right hand is going to move back to where it came from, so that again you can find your center, bring yourself back into your bend, and then carry yourself all the way back up to your starting position. Roller comes over onto the other side. Switching the legs, paying attention to the position that you've come into and the suitability of that. Switch it up if you need to. And then looking for the roller to be close by whilst you're settling in there. Take a breath in, lifting the right arm now, and then breathing out, just to venture into that first side bend. Inhaling. How's the left side of the body? Of course, it's meeting a surface that is potentially moving for you. Have you figured that out yet? And again, there isn't an expectancy to have a straight arm here as you're resting. It's as is, softened shoulder, elbow and wrist. Next time you side bend, over you go. And then breathing out and rotating downwards. So you're rotating down towards your left hand. Now the right hand brings itself onto the roller as close as it can to the left. And then the left moves back. And your starting position is going to have your sit bone that's trailing lifted as you bring the roller in towards you and extend. So there's where the money is. Outwardly rotated arms. This is just a way to take out the slack through the front body, place it very slightly into the upper body, relaxing you, and then you can take your next breath in, and it's as if the torso wants to meet the roller and the roller wants to meet the torso. Exhaling to take you round. You could continue to try to come round the corner more. Maybe moving the arms helps out with that. Think about bowing to come out of it. And last one. The left hand here moves back to the middle of the roller so that you can gently sit back into the trailing sit bone there. Bring yourself back into your side bend. Notice how that's feeling now and bring yourself all the way up. So we can leave the roller out the side edge of the mat there. I'm not sure mine will stay exactly. And take your band. It's going to come around the feet. And we're going to look at rolling down and rolling up. And so we're sitting tall here. And you'll take your exhale and reach the soles of the feet away from you. Pelvis is tilting backwards towards the rib cage. Center of the spine. Inhaling when you're on your back here. And then exhaling, lowering the gaze. Use the band. Lift the arms if necessary, in order that the front of the body can move in the opposite direction. Feels like it's heading downwards. Exhaling. And shut up. You can take your band away, heading into spine stretch with wider legs. Arms can come out in front of you. They could also come onto the mat in between the legs here as well. As you breathe out, lower your gaze. Ribs are drawing back. Reach your fingers forwards. And inhale. As you carry yourself back up to the starting position, exhale for your down. Back ribs heading back, a feeling of reaching forwards as much as you're holding back with the rib cage. Inhale, feel free to bend your knees. And last one here. full roll up. You could use cushions. You could take an assisted roll up instead. Full movement, arms out in front of you. Taking your breath out, allowing your spine to fall back. Shoulder blades part for the spine to fall in between them. And as you land, you'll take your arm arc, arms moving upwards and backwards. Continuous breath pattern here. So when you start to breathe out, can it continue? Diving up and over, feet are narrower here in the full roll-up variation. Spine falling back between the blades. Diving up and over, and as you come up next time, unravel to sit tall and pause there. So the roller is going to come underneath your bent legs, and we're going to look at shoulder bridge here. So bring yourself down onto your back, and a little feel for that. Notice, just as we did in our bridging setup, position of the feet, proximity to roller feels pretty much the same, so that we know that we're well organized down there. And then of course you're going to be lifting the pelvis and drawing the roller underneath you. Mid-high sacrum area, which of course may change as you float one knee to the ceiling and extend the leg up and away from you. And just check here, thigh bones are doing two different things. How's the pelvis doing in response to that? Hands could either be resting on the roller or out holding onto the sides. We're looking at flexing through the ankle as we lower the leg down. That's coming into an extended hip, pointing the toe and kicking the leg back up to where it came from. If you need to move the leg first before you take the hard flex, then of course come into that, reaching your heel long and away from you, and then kick the leg back up again, long and lengthened. Kicking up, big toe side of the feet. You get a sense of when it feels like you're in bridging with two thigh bones but one leg's straight and one leg's bent. Bend the knee and bring it back down. I would definitely just check in there. Maybe move the roller if you feel like you need to. Standing down into the leg you just used. Easy fold through the front of the hip, thinking back to dead bugs, of noticing the opposite side of the torso and then unfolding and reaching your leg up and away from you. Flexed ankle, heel reaches long and away, almost standing so much into the right foot that the pelvis feels lighter on the roller here. Long and lengthened. Looking for any sort of big movement away from the roller with the pelvis. Because of course we are looking to move in towards that extended hip position without the use of extending through the lower spine. So use your prop, use the equipment. It's going to help inform you there and finding yourself back into the center. Roller can come away, pelvis can land down. And if we take the roller out to the end of the mat once more, we can pick up on a little bit more extension. So we've had our extension prep, just resting on the roller. Perhaps you reached for a towel then. And then we're going to move into A little bit of shoulder movement to start off with, which will take us into Swan. And so here you are resting on your front, definitely looking at being there with this sense of length and space. And then your hands wide enough that you can move the blades up and down. And whilst there isn't an intention to move the spine, you will notice that it is responding to the position of the blades. And if it continued to respond, shoulder blades sliding down, spine lifting. Could it keep coming, lifting the pelvis up and away from the mat, and then using the length through the elbows still to guide you back down to where you came from. I'm going to move the roller very slightly up my hand, so it's starting a little bit more on the wrist. Still start each movement by lifting the shoulder blades so that there's a feeling of revealing the neck and the spine through the shoulder girdle as you start to come up. They slide up. Long side body, they slide down. And then pausing as you land next. Leave the roller where it is and bring yourself into your rounded position of choice. So whether you opt for your child's pose or your hands and knees, change your position. Maybe you're moving away from the floor. Maybe you're just using the floor differently. And then when you're ready to, you're going to bring yourself up to stand. You're doing that carefully, a real sense of where you are in the room, especially as we're changing from low to high in the body. And then when you're up, we'll take a handful of heel raises before we come into our plank and push up. So the balls of the feet are pushing down into the mat. Lift the heels and then slowly lower down. Last one. And then we're going to take our roll down, lowering the gaze up and over, heavy head, arms dangling, finding that with ease, so calm, walking out into your plank position. Use of toes, organisation. Heels back and down. Finding yourself back where you started, with bent or straight legs. And then when you're up there, you are done. Well done, and take care.